Please note, this content. Please note, this. Let's just start again. Please note, this podcast may contain bad language and content that some listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the Seesaw Podcast with T and Cleaves.
Each week offering up a blurry perspective on life.
How are you, T? How's things this week?
Not bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. You know, it's ticking over. We're still slowly moving through our coronavirus phase. Work's all right. Work's busy. Work is crazy busy. Like, they've got sales on, so I am absolutely up to my eyes. Other than that, yeah, you know, things are going all right. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Work's busy. It's dark, dreary. Wake up when it's dark. Go to bed when it's dark, as you normally would.
Mate, your demeanour is starting to sound dark and dreary.
No, I don't know. It's not my favourite time of year. I think it's not the favourite time of year for anyone with visual impairment, with the exception of potentially albinism, where light is your enemy.
Yeah, but that can happen with any. Well, not any. It can happen. Having a problem with light can happen with other visual impairments as well, rather than albinism.
It can, but I think that's most commonly associated, isn't it?
Yeah, true. You been up to anything in the week other than boring old work?
Thinking of things to talk about on the podcast. Things that are interesting anyway.
What have you got for me?
So this week I was thinking we could talk about restaurants and the things we do around restaurants, any hijinks that come into it. We can't go to any at the moment, so that's why I suppose I'm just craving going out. Going to a restaurant, even with all of the nonsense that comes with it, being someone who, as we'll discuss, potentially restaurants aren't the best setup for the visually impaired.
Restaurants just seem like a memory to me now.
I mean, we did have a brief chance to go to them. Before the second peak in coronavirus.
Again, that just seems like a distant memory now as well.
Yeah, well, hopefully this time next year we'll be through it all. No apocalyptic things will happen between now and then.
You never know.
You never know. So restaurants.
The topic of the week.
Topic of the week.
Restaurants.
Yes. So.
How do you deal in restaurants?
Well, I suppose it depends on the restaurant. I know you go to a lot more restaurants than I do, being the former food sheriff of Nottingham, the premier reviewer of local cuisine.
Old reviews can be found at WordPress.
Other reviews are also available.
Google reviews are available. Good reviews are available. In-date reviews are available. None of which that WordPress blog site will give you.
That's true.
Some of those restaurants are closed down now.
Fair
or moved. Yeah.
I mean, nothing to do with your reviews. I mean, we're not implying that your scathing reviews of certain restaurants caused them to close down.
One restaurant did threaten to sue me, and they are still open.
Well, threatening is one thing, and actually doing it is another.
I admittedly pussied out and took that review down.
Yeah, well, at the time we had a chat about that, and I think I was the one who called you out on bending to corporate might.
Yeah, that bugs me, to be honest. I should probably just put it back up. But again, it's kind of outdated now.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
I'm going to start a new one, right, where I go around reviewing restaurants. I'm just going to look at them from the outside and go, looks nice. You can go on a walking tour of Nottingham with a mask on, of course, by yourself, not with more than however many people you're allowed to be with at that particular point, and just look at the outside of restaurants. Let's have a look at what you could eat.
Of course, the deeply ironic thing is a visually impaired person doing a walk-in tour looking at restaurants.
I didn't really think that through.
No, I don't think he did. But, I mean, maybe if there was audio description on the restaurants, it might be better.
I'll do the tour, you know, those little plug-in headphones things. I'll give them one of them. They can walk around Nottingham. Why has no one done this? A walking tour of all the restaurants you can't currently eat at.
I mean, it's a niche market, I'll give you that. So, as said, you used to frequent restaurants quite a lot. I don't mind going to one here and there. But of course, they do come with their challenges. Again, it depends on the restaurant. I think some of the more mainstream ones are a little bit better at accommodation, like accessibility, things like that.
Like the chain restaurants.
I'd say mainly the chain restaurants, but even then, some of them can be a bit of a nightmare. So, what do you find tough at restaurants? Let's say it's in the evening, this time of year, quite dark. You're going out for a bite to eat with some friends. Let's say, and what would be your walking in the door? What's the first thing that sort of comes to mind?
Well, walking into the door of a restaurant, chances are I'm not going to be able to see in there. They're normally dark. It doesn't really matter what the restaurant is. It can be Italian, Indian, English, Chinese. The lighting's not normally great. It's fine if you can see. You have 20/20 vision. That's not a problem. But for me, I walk in there and chances are I won't be able to see the table. Or if I can see the tables, I won't be able to see to get to the table. So unless you're with friends, it's kind of awkward. I walked into a Thai restaurant actually about a year or so back now for a friend's birthday, and I was the first one there. And it was a table of 6 of us, but because I was by myself, I sort of had to ask the waitress, like, I don't mean to be creepy, love, but I'm kind of partly blind, and can I just put my hand on your shoulder or follow you directly behind until you make it to the table? And
Heard that one before.
she was fine about it, but it was, in fact, I went to a burger restaurant as well, and this was in between the 2 peaks of COVID, and the woman that was bringing people into the restaurant, she says, "Oh, do you need an arm or anything?" Well, she's like offered me a arm so that I could hold that and she could guide me, and I was like, yeah, that was fine. They were actually okay with it, and that wasn't a well-known burger joint. I mean, it's famous in Nottingham, but the staff were very accommodating in that respect and had no problems in terms of their perspective on disabled people was fine. They don't mind helping disabled people out.
I think it really is depends on the staff. I think that's one of the main things with this. It really does depend on the staff, and of course, I have a different perspective on things because of being a guide dog user. But I do agree that finding where you're sitting is an issue. I think also the lighting while you're trying to eat as well. I know I always try and get a table and a seat directly under the light, but sometimes beggars can't be choosers, especially in a big city like we are. You don't make a reservation, and even if you do, usually reservation forms don't have the how light do you want your table to be.
Yeah, it's true.
So sometimes you show up and they go, "Oh, we've got a table for you," and you think, fantastic, and it's in the corner and it's dingy, and then I don't know about you, but my selection on the menu is dictated around the whole I won't be able to see this.
Oh, yeah, definitely. If I'm in an Italian restaurant, for example, and I'm in a really dingy corner of the restaurant, then chances are I'm going to pick pizza because I can eat it with my hands and it's nice and easy and I can do it in the dark without even thinking about it. I ain't picking spag bol.
Yeah, I even if I liked spag bol, I probably wouldn't pick it. I would probably opt for the pizza side of things. And even if we're getting away from like Italian cuisine, I usually go for things with the least amount of things on the plate, I suppose. So avoiding things where peas can go everywhere, but selecting things like a jacket potato over chips. I mean, chips aren't too bad, but if it's a place where you can't use your hands, at least it's one potato I have to keep track of.
See, I think I'd prefer to have chips because I can eat chips with my hands and it's not really frowned upon. If you pick up a jacket potato, I appreciate you wouldn't do that. You would be eating it with a knife and fork.
Bite into it like an apple.
Yeah. Beans dripping off your beard.
Hey, that would be, I wouldn't do that on the first date.
No.
I probably wouldn't even do it after many years of marriage. That might be socially frowned upon, I suppose. So you've gotten into the restaurant, you found your table, you can see what you're doing.
Sometimes I can't though. Sometimes I can't even see the menu. If it's dark, then that's a problem, isn't it? If it's dark, then I'm not able to see the menu. I either have to use a torch on my phone, in which case you look quite clearly disabled, which is quite embarrassing, to be honest. No one wants to. You don't want to be that guy that has to get a torch out to read a menu, especially if you're on a first date. Jesus, you don't want to do it in front of your friends, but in front of someone that you've potentially never met before is even worse.
I mean, you say that, and I fully agree, but I think it's a different perspective. For example, I once was on holiday in Mexico with my wife, and we had a beautiful meal. It was one of these sit outside on the veranda, watching the sun go down on the shore. Beautiful. But of course, the only light you have is a candle inside a jar on your table.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't adequate for me. And of course, then they start bringing the food out to you. And literally, well, I might have been able to guess before, the guesswork is completely out. I can't guess what's on my plate. And because it's a fixed menu, I don't really have the say on what they're bringing me.
Your problem is you didn't eat it before the sun went down.
Well, they didn't bring it to me. The sun went down. I creatively used wine glasses to make a makeshift frame in which I put my phone upright with the flashlight on.
Oh, okay.
To illuminate my plate. And I didn't feel embarrassed about this. I thought, well, this is just what I have to do.
Really, with our conditions in situations like that, you kind of just got to check your embarrassment at the door, haven't you?
You really do. I think what made it easier on me as well is when we were walking out of the restaurant later, someone had clearly seen me do it, and I don't know if they were visually impaired, but they had also done the same thing. So it wasn't just it was dark for me, which just any lighting goes down at all, and it is too dark for me normally. But it wasn't just it was dark for me; it was for everyone because someone had thought that's a genius idea to illuminate their linguine, which it doesn't feel so bad then. But I agree, it depends on the context. It depends on who you're with. You're not going to do it on a first date.
Some meals are quite tricky to eat when it's dark as well. I mean, have you ever eaten a roast dinner in the dark? Oh God, have you ever seen a fully blind person try to eat a roast dinner? It's I watch it with a mixture of humour and shame and pity. It's unbearable sometimes. I just think it's hard enough for me to do it with minimal sight. But if you are totally blind, especially with not even like got light perception or anything, and you're having to eat meals daily, obviously to stay alive.
Yeah.
would you pick a sandwich every time, or would you think, do you know what? No, I'm gonna have a roast dinner today.
Yeah,
swimming in gravy. You got your hands lodged in there.
I mean, I'm not a fan of roast dinners as is, but I agree that the sight of a completely blind person tucking into a roast dinner.
It's like a horror show. It's a bit like a car crash, and it draws your attention, and you're like, oh, this is bad, but you can't look away at the same time.
No, and I think it's important to be able to, at least with the people that I know who are fully blind, it's self-preservation. They really don't care. The food's going in their mouth one way or another, and if that involves putting the usual technique is to have a fork in one hand and use the other hand to map the plate, which normally, if you've got chips and fish fingers, isn't too much of a thing. It's not a big deal.
But when everything's covered in gravy, you're not going to dip your hand into a lamb hot pot, are you?
No, that's when it does get a little bit strange. But
third-degree Bernie.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that they are very unapologetic, and they should be. If this is the way it has to be done, this is the way it has to be done. But going off of this, I want to get your thoughts on places where it's serve yourself, so carveries, Pan Asians, where you have multiple things up, and you take your plate. Well, you go up, you get your various bits and bobs. So let's say you're in a restaurant where you have to do this and not ordering on the menu.
My problem with this, firstly, is that those restaurants tend to be a big bag of dicks. All they do is take a lot of cuisines that various countries around the world do well, half-arse them, stick them in like little hot plate tubs. Some places are good, fine, but most of them, pretty toss. But I get what you're saying. You've got to go up and do it yourself. And as I've already said, a lot of time I can't even find where I'm meant to be sitting. So going up to, I don't know what they call it, the big long
the buffet.
The buffet. Yeah. When you go up to the buffet, and there's a load of things there that are usually under like a little plastic tray thing covered in steam, so you can't really see what it is. There's usually a little note above the top that tells you what it is. But again, I normally can't read that either. So I either have to open it and have a look what it is. And again, if it's a foreign cuisine, even then I'm not still sure. I usually just kind of dip the scoop in, put a little bit on my plate and think, I'll try that. And if it's good, I'll come back and get some more. But That's assuming I've managed to get there. I can't really get there unless someone helps me there. So I usually have to go with friends. Not that I would go and eat at a buffet restaurant by myself, but maybe people would on a business trip.
No, but on a date, even if not a first date, if you're seeing someone and you want to, we'll get onto dating in another episode, you want to paint a picture of normality. I don't suppose you would this isn't in contention at all, or at least it wouldn't be for me.
I wouldn't go. No, I wouldn't go somewhere like that.
No, you'd want definitely a fixed menu or from a menu sort of thing.
I did once go to a buffet restaurant where it was so busy and we could not get the waitress's attention to pay up at the end of the meal. And we kept trying to get the attention, and then we even went up to the bar, and again it was so busy, and I'm trying to flag someone down at the bar, still couldn't get anyone. We got to the door, there was a woman on the door, she's taking people in, and again I'm trying to get her attention, nothing. So me and the girl I was with, we just left. Didn't pay, started walking down the street, just pretty nonchalantly, to be honest. It's not like we ran. And then as we were about to turn the corner, the woman just starts running up behind us, like, oh, you've not paid? I'm like, yeah, well, we tried. We did go back and pay again.
Yeah. just in case the police are listening about your all-you-can-eat buffet shenanigans.
Wouldn't be the first time I dined and dashed. But that one I tried to pay, whereas at least the other times I did it on purpose.
No, that's fair enough. I don't think I've ever had that. I think I'm too patient. I will quite happily sit there, much to the chagrin of everyone I'm with, but I will sit and wait. And of course, I'll make efforts to flag people down, but I'm a very patient person in general, so it really doesn't bother me, which I think we're very different in that regard.
I got no time for anything. It needs to be done now.
Yeah, I think that will come across on recordings quite a lot.
I can't even wait for a bus. If a bus is later than like 3 minutes, that's it. I'm so annoyed.
You're lucky you live in a place where public transport is pretty solid, to be honest. Because anywhere else, you might be a very angry man, or at least angrier than you are.
Yeah, that's true.
So you've got to table, you've got your food. I mean, I think the other things that sort of come to my mind are the facilities, say the bathroom. That's always an issue. This is for everywhere in public. But finding your way around a restaurant is one thing. Finding yourself to the toilet's quite difficult. I think even when you're with someone you know, if it's just two of you, because you have to leave your table to be shown where it is.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of an odd one.
If I am in a restaurant and I do need to go to the toilet, then usually I'll just wait until someone else needs to go. That way I can just be like, oh, yeah, you're going to the toilet. I could probably need to go as well, so I'll go as well. It basically seems like you're not inconveniencing anyone that way. One of the worst things is when you sat in a restaurant or a pub or somewhere and you're desperate for a piss, but no one else needs to go, but you don't know where the actual toilet is, and you have to ask someone to go out of their way to take you to the toilet. God, that's degrading.
Yeah, it is, and especially when you're around new people, that can be quite difficult. I've not gone on work outings and work parties and Christmas socials for the exact reason that I don't want to rely on people for that. Even if they're going, sometimes I don't think it's appropriate to tag along. I think that's more of a personal thing for me. I don't think many people would actually care.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I think it's more of my own hang-up.
Yeah, I suppose it is. I think it is with me as well. But sometimes you don't want to be that guy. God forbid it's upstairs. I'm not a fan of Weatherspoons. Weatherspoons is a chain pub for anyone who doesn't know. Quite big. They serve food. Notoriously very, very busy. No matter where you go, they always seem to be busy because they have very cheap drinks. They have passable food at a cheap price.
It's the epitome of cheap and cheerful, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to go there for a fancy, like for a special occasion or anything nice. But if you're having a couple of drinks before going to watch some sport or after, it's pretty harmless.
Yeah, you go there for the cheap drinks, and you know the food's not going to be great, but it's basically there to line your stomach.
Essentially, it is, and they're not bad with what they do.
Yeah, you pay for what you get.
Yeah, exactly, and it's better than just going down to your local burger shack and grabbing something for a couple of quid, which of course is another viable option. But sometimes you want to have a beer with it.
Yep.
I mean, we don't live in France where you can get a beer at McDonald's, which I don't know if they still do. So needless to say, bit difficult restauranting, still enjoyable. So I still like to do it. I know you do. You like to go out, especially when you've had a couple of drinks. I know that I will. If I'm out with certain people, I will be very careful with what I drink because certain drinks go straight through you.
Yeah.
And others don't. So if I'm going out for a meal with a few friends who maybe don't fully know the extent of my disability, I will not have a couple of beers because they do sort of, you do need to go to the bathroom. I will opt for things like a small glass of wine because literally it's less liquid.
Yep.
And it also makes me look fancy. I don't mind.
You drink whiskey. I sometimes drink spirits. Again, if I'm not out with people that I know particularly well, then I tend to drink spirits over beer.
Yeah, well, we're with a mixer, I hope. I mean, I hope you're not the sort of guy who everyone's getting a beer and then you're like, oh, I'll have a double whiskey on ice.
Well, I might do that. Apparently, I have less hang-ups about that, drinking hard liquor in front of people I don't know and looking like an alcoholic as I do asking them, oh, excuse me, can you just show me where the toilet is?
Yeah, I suppose. I think the toilet thing in general is more... I get embarrassed more with the frequency of it.
Right.
And not having that independence. So especially when you, quote-unquote, break the seal, sometimes in the first, in an hour or so, or 2 hours, you might need to go to the toilet 3 times, maybe 4. And everybody does this. If you drink cider or if you drink
urine,
I suppose it would also count if you drank urine. But when you're drinking a vast amount, you will need to go to the bathroom a fair amount. And I think relying on people at that point is, I think it's less obtrusive when you're doing it yourself. But I feel that it's more noticeable that this is the case when you're having to ask someone every single time.
Here's the thing though, right? We feel shit for asking someone just to show us where the toilet is. The good thing about toilets is they're normally brighter than the restaurant, or than the pub, or than the pub.
Yeah, they are. I will agree there.
But if you have other disabilities to the point where maybe you can't move your limbs or something, and someone is physically moving you to the toilet, then that's got to be even worse, isn't it? I mean, we piss and moan about our problems, but there's people out there that's got it so much worse.
Yeah, I agree. But of course, everything's relative. I know a lot of people will have a lot of tough times, but I don't know the full ins and outs of that. It'd be good to get someone on who could give that perspective. But we'll see down the line. Go to the Rolodex and see who in the community.
Back in the 1980s.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be able to read it, but it would look good on my desk.
You can probably get a Rolodex app.
I have no doubt you do. I think it's called the contacts list of your phone.
It's not fun though, is it?
I
want it to make that noise.
I'm sure there probably is a widget you can have on your phone where you can swipe through it.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of work though, just for not a lot of payoff.
Well, maybe there's a market for that. I mean, there are things out there that people will do ridiculous things just for the enjoyment of them.
Like my walking tour of closed restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what falls in the realm of completely useless but might have some entertainment value.
Does this podcast also fall into that?
Well, I suppose if you're on a treadmill during it, I suppose you're getting some use, but maybe.
If you're on a treadmill, I don't think this podcast is really going to drive you to...
I mean, it depends on what you edit, what sort of music you edit at the start here. If it's a bit of dubstep or something.
No, it's going to be something really slow and poignant.
Oh, okay, then it's
going to be Adele. Or Dido or something.
Well, not motivational at all then.
Nope.
Well, we've done full circle, going back to a walking tour. If you do want to go on one of Cleaves' walking audio tours of Nottingham, too bad, because I can't see him following through on it.
You're probably quite right there. I'm definitely not going to follow through on it. So what's it like for you in restaurants then? Because you have a guide dog. Are they actually accommodating for that?
It depends on the restaurant entirely. Yes and no, I'm going to say. Yes and no. I have had many experiences where they've been terrible. I've had many experiences where they are really good.
Does that depend on the cuisine? Are some nationalities more accompanying than others?
I think
Is it a cultural thing? I suppose what I'm asking.
I think a cultural aspect is there, but I think a lack of knowledge of the logistics of the law is one of the main things. Just to clue people up, the law is a working dog is exempt from any laws that would prohibit animals on a premises that sells and sort of serves food. So guide dogs fall into this. So a guide dog can go into any restaurant. The environmental health department in the government in the UK have made it absolutely fine. You can go in because working dogs are extremely well behaved in general.
Yeah, not yours.
Not all the time, no, but I mean that's an exception to the rule. They are very clean. You haven't got the risk of them going to the bathroom in the restaurant or trying to eat food or things like that. They can be a little bit naughty, but that's not going to be anything that's going to affect the hygiene of the restaurant or the running of the premises.
To be fair, you say that working dogs can be in any restaurant, but then there's that place that has like cats running around everywhere. How is that passing in environmental health?
I don't know. It comes down to individual sort of premises have different rules, different regulations, don't they? And it comes down to what sort of star rating you want. And I don't know if they've got cats running around. Fine.
That's like the gimmick of the place, but at the same time, do you really want cats knocking about everywhere? I went in there once, and without a word of a lie, my sister, who was also there, I think it was her birthday, she was like, "Oh, where are all the cats?" And with a straight face, the waitress said, "Oh, I think they're all roaming around the kitchen." I don't want that.
Yeah, you see, I'm not a cat person anyway, so that's not something that really appeals to me. I mean, I understand.
But animals generally, you don't want them knocking about the kitchen, do you?
No, and I mean, I'm never going to go into the back end of a restaurant, into the kitchen with my guide dog. You've got to use your common sense with this. I think there are issues still with and like allowing animals in. I think in general there are a lot of issues with assistance dogs, and the law isn't always held to. And I don't know whether that's a lack of knowledge, or cultural differences, or just not wanting to. There are situations where just stonewalling and being like, no, we're not bending on this, even being fully aware. And I think the problem isn't so much, I mean, I'm always ready to fight my corner. If I go into a restaurant and I'm told no dogs, I will fight my corner. I used to be quite nice about it. I mean, well, no, actually, I've got a working dog. He's a guide dog. They're allowed in here. I have a little card that guide dogs provide you with to show. And it's like, if you have issues, you can phone this number. And it goes to a team that work, within the Department of Health.
Most of those aren't going to be available at the time you want to go to a restaurant, which arguably is past 5 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, that's true. The issue that I have is I will allow benefit of the doubt for those who aren't British nationals when I go into somewhere and I expect to have that discussion with them.
Don't know why. British nationals are just as stupid as everyone else.
That's the issue. That's when I do take offence and when I do get quite angry. I've been to many a place where it will be a young British national and there'll be the waiting staff and they will say no dogs and I have to have that discussion with them. The issue is as soon as you have this discussion, you always feel as though you're inconveniencing them. Like they're making accommodations for you and they're begrudgingly letting you in.
Well, they are.
Well, they are, but that doesn't exactly make for an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, it's tainted from the start, isn't it?
It is, and for anyone who's listening who works in the food industry, take it from me, and I know people who also have guide dogs who do this as well. If you cause a fuss about a guide dog and begrudgingly let a guide dog user in, do not expect a tip. No matter how good your service or the food is, out of pure spite, you're not getting anything from me because you've made the entire situation, which should have been all about me just living my life as everyone else does, you've made it, you've brought my disability to the forefront, and I don't think about being disabled, and I know you don't either. But
we're literally doing a podcast about it.
We are, but it's not something you think about in day-to-day life.
No.
It's frustrating when the limitations are thrown at you.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing, is when the world throws it at you. And I've a short story here. It's not one of my classic rambly, ranty stories.
Oh, come on. T, short story.
Short story with T. The definition of short might change after this. It's a short story with T. Short story with T. Warning, story may not be short.
So I have been to a all-you-can-eat sort of pan-Asian buffet.
Was dog on the menu?
Dog was not on the menu.
You don't know that.
You're right. I don't know that, but I'm going to say no.
Was it a Korean place?
No, it wasn't. It was a chain.
Okay.
I won't say which chain it is.
Other chains are available.
Other chains are available, but I won't say which one this was. But quite a large chain. I walked in around lunchtime. Me and my missus had been out for a nice day, wanted something to eat, and thought, oh, this is nice, we're in this area, why not? Walk in and immediately get confronted by a young British man. Like, again, cultural differences I can at least accommodate for because of sort of a lack of knowledge of the law, and I'm happy to have that conversation with him. I'm not going to be mean or horrible about it. I'm happy to educate, but immediately I get no dogs in here. I have the discussion, and they go, oh, well, you can't go near the food, I'm told. I went, well, how am I going to get my food? And no answer. I can't remember what the response was, but there was no credible answer. Essentially, it was, well, doesn't matter. Dog's not allowed near the food. And take in mind that the food is usually sort of chest height, just a little bit below chest height.
Yeah.
I only have a very small Labrador. If he was to jump, his paws might reach the part where you put your plates. But he's in harness, he's a working dog. At no point is that ever going to be a situation. Wasn't exactly happy about this, but they begrudgingly, like, oh, okay, fine, we'll let you in. And it was lunchtime, it was quite quiet. So as we came in the door, I remember there was a lot of people to the right-hand side, so you could go to the right or you could go to the left. On the right, that's where there were sitting people. And restaurants, they like to put people together. If you've ever noticed, you go into a restaurant, even when it's quiet, even though there's a million tables in there, they'll always put people together because it gives the illusion of busyness. It's very clever marketing.
Yeah, also the waitress didn't want to have to walk halfway across the restaurant to serve different people.
Exactly. So unless you specifically ask, like, to be sat in a certain place, potentially with more lighting, you'll generally be put with other people. It was filling up. They were filling up the right-hand side of the restaurant, and we've just had this conversation with this young man. And at this point, I'm quite annoyed about things, understandably. But I'm hungry. My wife's hungry. I'm just thinking, just swallow your pride. Just get on with it. He doesn't take us to the right where everyone's sitting. He takes us to the left, on the empty side of the restaurant. Takes us past, must be 15 tables, right to the corner. Puts us in the corner.
No one puts Tony in the corner.
Well, on this occasion, no one does put Tony in the corner because before he left, he said, oh, yeah, the dog isn't allowed near the food, as if we hadn't had the conversation before. We didn't even sit down. He started to walk back to do his other duties, and we just walked back the way we came, exited the premises. I think I gave a very snotty, horrible Google review We ended up just going to a fast food drive-thru on the way home because at this point my day was done. I was too angry. I think we just got a burger drive-thru. So it did take the entire day, and it shouldn't have been that way.
No.
And this shouldn't happen, but it does, unfortunately.
Was a short story from T. Pat yourself on the back if you made it this far. It was a short story from T. Story clocked in at 4 minutes 14.
I think we've been out in groups before. We've been out in a group, and when suggestions come up for restaurants, I always know that there's going to be issues. And if we're having a good time, there might be a suggestion of, oh, let's go into this place. And I think you have been there when it's happened, where I have been the one to say, I don't want to go in there because I know there'll be a battle about the dog. And I don't want to taint the day, because no matter how much I get annoyed about things, I find that people around me get more annoyed about it because they don't deal with it as much as I do.
Yeah.
And they lose their head about it a lot quicker than I do. And you don't want to taint the day, because then that's the topic of the day.
Yeah, that's true. It's what people talk about in after that.
And sometimes I don't want to be that guy. Sometimes I will say, no, not here. Or I'll say, I don't like that sort of food. And then we'll go elsewhere. And it's purely because I know that something will happen. I've had enough experience when you take one look at a place and you think, this is going to be trouble. And it might not have been.
They are big words, yeah.
Yeah, it might not have been. But you get used to certain scenarios.
The thing is, it's an easy thing to fix as well, isn't it? You don't even have to do anything. You just let them in.
Yep.
It's not like you've gone out of your way to do something to accommodate these like guide dogs. All you do is go, yeah, and you go.
Yeah. But there we go. There's just a few hijinks of
Eating out
at
a fancy restaurant.
Yep.
So what we got for next week, T?
So next week is our surprise.
Oh, I look forward to it.
You see, you actually put me on the spot there, and I was thinking, did we set a topic for next week? And even if we did, I'm still going to say surprise.
Okay, let's leave it there for now. Feel free to contact us at all the usual social media outlets: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. It's at Seesaw Podcast.
Fantastic.
All right, until next week. Catch you in a bit, T.
Have a good one, Cleaves.
Bye.